All right. Get ready to dive into some deep waters today because we are taking on Nietzsche.
Oh, yeah. Nietzsche.
Specifically,
Yeah.
Thus Spake Zarathustra. And just a heads up, this is not your typical philosophical read.
It's true. Nietzsche was very deliberate in choosing to write this as a story.
Yeah.
A narrative. So yeah, it's not just straight philosophy. It's more like a philosophical novel.
It feels a lot more dynamic than just reading an essay, that's for sure. So for those of us who haven't had a chance to crack open Zarathustra yet, can you set the scene? What's the basic setup here?
Okay, so picture this. Our main character, Zarathustra, he's been living up on a mountain all alone for 10 years. Just thinking about, the big questions.
The classic philosopher move, right?
Exactly. 10 years in solitude. And then he decides, all right, I'm ready. He comes down the mountain.
He's got something to say?
He's got wisdom to share.
Yeah. So what is it? What's the big takeaway that he's bringing down from that mountaintop retreat?
Well, one of the most central, and I'd say controversial ideas in Zarathustra is this concept of the Superman.
Superman, like tights and a cape?
Not quite.
Yeah,
it's not a literal superhero that Nietzsche's talking about here.
Okay.
The Superman is more like an ideal, a philosophical ideal. It's about reaching the full potential of what it means to be human.
Okay.
Transcending our current limitations.
So it's almost like humanity's next evolutionary step.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Reaching a new level of consciousness and power.
Right. And for Nietzsche, it's not going to happen passively. He actually talks about rearing the Superman, which suggests a deliberate effort.
Interesting.
To cultivate.
So what needs to change? What's holding us back from reaching this Superman ideal?
Well, for Nietzsche, one of the major things that was holding humanity back was the morality of his time, and in particular, the influence of Christianity. He was very critical of things like pity, humility, self-sacrifice. He felt like those values actually weakened humanity.
He's definitely going against the grain there.
Oh, yeah.
Those are pretty widely accepted virtues.
He saw those values as promoting weakness and hindering the development of strength,
Right.
Individuality, and the will to power.
Okay, there's another one. Will to power. That's a loaded term. What did he mean by that exactly?
The will to power is really central to Nietzsche's philosophy. And it's often misunderstood.
Yeah.
It's not about, brute force or dominating other people. It's a much more fundamental drive, like a life force.
Yeah.
It's a yearning for growth, for self-realization, for overcoming obstacles.
So it's more about mastering yourself than mastering others.
Precisely. It's
Yeah.
about pushing your own boundaries, striving for excellence,
Okay.
becoming the best version of yourself.
All right, so Zarathustra comes down from the mountain. He's got this radical vision of the Superman and the will to power. What happens next? Who does he meet on his journey?
Well, this is where the story gets really interesting. Zarathustra's journey is full of these encounters with all these different characters who represent different sides of human nature, different philosophical viewpoints.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's going through these trials or tests as he makes his way back to civilization.
Yeah.
Give me an example. What's one of these pivotal encounters?
Okay, so one that really stands out is his meeting with this wise old man,
Right.
who, as Nietzsche puts it, knoweth well how to sleep.
You knoweth well how to sleep. Okay, that's a little cryptic. What's the deeper meaning there?
It's a metaphor for the ability to find peace, contentment in life, even in the midst of struggles and uncertainty. So this wise man, he represents a balance between striving for greatness, but also, finding serenity in the present moment.
That's a nice counterpoint to the intensity of the Superman idea.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't have to be constantly striving and pushing yourself
Yeah.
to reach your full potential.
Yeah. There's a wisdom in knowing when to rest, when to let go,
Absolutely.
to just be.
But I imagine not everyone Zarathustra encounters is quite as enlightened as this wise old man.
Right.
What about the people who are struggling, who are in despair? How does he address their suffering?
Well, this is where it gets even more interesting. Nietzsche, through Zarathustra, explores this idea of backworlds, which he sees as these imaginary realms or belief systems that people create to kind of escape from the harsh realities of existence.
So like coping mechanisms.
Exactly.
A way to escape from the pain of life.
Precisely.
Yep.
And Nietzsche is arguing that this tendency to create these back worlds, whether it's through religion or ideology or other forms of escapism, is a sign of weakness, a denial of the true nature of life.
He's really hammering on this idea of facing reality head on, isn't he?
Oh, he is. He's rejecting any form of escapism, particularly those that deny the importance of the physical world, the body,
Okay.
the immediacy of our experience.
So it's about embracing life in its totality.
Yes.
Both the joy and the suffering, the beauty and the ugliness.
Absolutely. And he believes that this embracing the totality of life is really essential for the development of the Superman.
All right. I'm starting to get a sense of the framework here. Zarathustra's on this quest to awaken humanity to its potential. But, I'm still curious about those metaphors he uses, the lion, the child, the will to power.
Right.
How do those fit into the narrative?
Well, those metaphors are crucial for understanding the journey of becoming the Superman. Nietzsche describes them as stages in the development of this new type of human being.
Okay, walk me through it. What's the significance of the lion?
The lion represents the first step, that need to break free from the constraints of conventional morality,
Okay.
to roar defiance against the values that hold us back.
So like a lion breaking free from its cage,
Yeah,
rejecting the limitations imposed on it.
exactly. It's about finding the courage to question everything, to challenge the status quo, to forge your own path.
And what about the child? Where does that figure in?
The child comes after the lion.
Okay.
So once you've broken free from those old constraints, you enter this state of innocence and playfulness,
Yeah.
a sense of wonder and creativity. The child symbolizes the ability to see the world with fresh eyes, to approach life with joy and experimentation.
I love that imagery. It's like shedding the weight of the past and embracing this newfound freedom to create, to explore, to play.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that the will to power is the driving force behind both of these stages. It's the energy that fuels the lion's roar and the child's laughter.
So it's not just about raw power. It's about channeling that energy towards growth, transformation, self-discovery.
Exactly. It's about becoming a force of nature, not in a destructive sense, but in a creative, life-affirming way.
This is fascinating stuff. But I know Nietzsche doesn't shy away from controversy. So what about his views on things like love, marriage,
Right.
even the existence of God? I mean, those are some pretty big topics to tackle head on.
They are. And we'll definitely get into those more detail as we continue following Zarathustra's journey. Just wait till you hear what he has to say about the death of God.
All right, you've got me hooked. I can't wait to hear what's next. But for now, let's give everyone a minute to digest all this.
Yeah, some breathing room.
Nietzsche's a lot to take in.
A lot to process.
So for all of you listening out there, what are your initial reactions? What's standing out to you so far? We'll pick this conversation back up next time and see where this philosophical adventure leads us.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Thus Spake Zarathustra. When we left off, we were talking about the stages of becoming the Superman. The lion breaking free, the child embracing a new way of seeing the world.
Right, and I'm ready to hear where Zarathustra's journey takes us next. What happens in his adventures?
Okay, so after encountering all these different people and sharing his wisdom and parables and pronouncements, he finds himself drawn to this group of higher men.
Higher men. Are these the Supermen in the making?
You could say that. They're the ones who are most receptive to his message, the ones who are willing to question conventional morality, embrace the will to power.
Oh, okay.
And these higher men, they gather in a cave,
Right.
and that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What happens in this cave? What goes down?
This is where Nietzsche stages one of the most striking and I'd say controversial scenes in the book, the Ass Festival.
The Ass Festival. Okay, I gotta admit, that name doesn't exactly scream philosophical enlightenment.
It's definitely provocative, and I think that was Nietzsche's intention. He was a master of using, symbolism and allegory to challenge our assumptions, to make us think differently.
So what's the symbolism behind this Ass Festival? What's going on here?
On the surface, it's a scene of revelry and celebration, almost like a mockery of traditional religious rituals.
Okay.
So the higher men are on their knees worshiping an ass, which, is a clear symbol of what Nietzsche sees as the absurdity of blind faith, of herd mentality.
He's not pulling any punches.
Not at all.
Directly challenging the sacred cow, so to speak.
Exactly. He's trying to shake us out of our complacency, to make us confront the irrationality of clinging to beliefs that no longer serve us.
But there's going to be more to it than just poking fun at religion, right?
Yeah.
What's the deeper meaning that he's trying to convey?
Right. So the Ass Festival is also about celebrating life in all its fullness, embracing the earthly, the sensual, the Dionysian.
Okay.
It's about breaking free from the constraints of asceticism and embracing the body, the instincts, the raw energy of existence.
So it's about saying yes to life,
Yeah.
even in its most absurd and chaotic forms.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that joy and celebration can coexist with suffering and hardship.
That's a powerful message, especially in a world that so often tells us to repress our desires and deny the darker aspects of our nature.
Right. And Nietzsche's challenging that kind of repressive morality. He's advocating for a more holistic view of human experience, one that embraces both the light and the shadow.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how this Ass Festival fits into his overall philosophy. It's about challenging convention, about embracing life's totality and pushing the boundaries of what's considered acceptable.
You got it. And just when things are reaching a fever pitch in this cave, a new character emerges, a figure known as the ugliest man.
The ugliest man.
Okay.
Okay, this is getting even more intriguing. Who is this character and what role does he play?
He represents the burden of human suffering, the weight of despair, of nihilism. He's like the embodiment of what happens when we lose faith in everything, when we're left with nothing to believe in.
That sounds pretty heavy. What does this ugliest man do that makes him so significant?
He reveals that he has killed God.
Well, hold on. He killed God, like literally.
Not literally, of course. It's a metaphor for the death of traditional belief systems, the collapse of the old order, the loss of meaning in a world that no longer has a fixed center.
Okay, so he's talking about the decline of religion, the rise of secularism.
Right.
That feeling that everything's up for grabs, that there are no absolute truths anymore.
Exactly. And this death of God, it's a pivotal moment in Zarathustra's journey because it forces him to confront the implications of his own philosophy.
So if there's no God, no preordained morality, no fixed set of values, then what's left? How do we navigate this new world without losing our way?
That's the central question that Nietzsche is wrestling with here. He
Yeah.
sees the death of God as both liberating and terrifying.
Liberating because it frees us from shackles of dogma, but terrifying because it leaves us adrift without a compass to guide us.
You nailed it. It's like stepping into this vast uncharted territory. You have the freedom to go anywhere to create anything, but you also face the danger of getting lost, of losing your sense of purpose.
So how does Zarathustra respond to this challenge? What guidance does he offer to those who are struggling to find meaning in a world without God?
Well, he doesn't offer easy answers. He doesn't, provide a new set of commandments to replace the old ones. Instead, he encourages the higher men to embrace their freedom, to create their own values, to become masters of the world.
Masters of the world. So he's not advocating for a passive acceptance of this new reality. He's saying we need to actively shape it, to take control of our own destinies.
That's the essence of his message. He's calling for a radical individualism, a rejection of herd mentality, a willingness to forge your own path, even if it means going against the grain.
But I imagine this path isn't easy. There must be obstacles along the way.
Absolutely. Zarathustra acknowledges the challenges that come with embracing this new way of being. He warns against the dangers of the populace, those who cling to outdated values and try to hold back the higher men from reaching their full potential.
So it's a battle against conformity, against mediocrity, against those who would try to drag you down to their level.
You could say that. Nietzsche sees this struggle as an inevitable part of the journey towards becoming the Superman.
It's a reminder that true growth and transformation often requires to confront resistance, both within ourselves and from the world around us.
And speaking of confronting resistance, we can't forget about the will to power. This concept keeps coming up throughout Zarathustra's teachings.
Yeah, it seems to be the driving force behind everything he's talking about, but I'm still trying to wrap my head around exactly what he means by it.
It's a complex and nuanced idea, but at its core, the will to power is the fundamental energy that drives all living things towards growth, expansion, self-overcoming.
It's not just about power over others, it's about power over oneself, right? The power to shape your own destiny, to create your own meaning, to become the author of your own life story.
That's a great way to put it. And for Nietzsche, this will to power is at play in all aspects of life, from our personal relationships to the evolution of societies and cultures.
So it's a universal force, a kind of cosmic energy that's constantly pushing us towards greater complexity and creativity.
Exactly. And one of the most thought-provoking ways Nietzsche explores this idea is through the concept of the eternal return.
Ah, yes, the eternal return. We touched on this briefly earlier. It's the idea that everything that has happened, is happening, and will happen will repeat itself endlessly in an infinite cycle.
That's the gist of it. And it's not meant to be taken literally. It's more of a thought experiment, a way to challenge our assumptions about time, about choice, about the meaning of life.
Okay, so how does this concept of the eternal return connect to the will to power?
Well, if you knew that you were going to live the same life over and over again, wouldn't you want to make it a life worth repeating? Wouldn't you want to make choices that you wouldn't regret, to embrace experiences that would bring you joy and fulfillment?
It definitely puts things in perspective. Suddenly, every decision feels like it has like infinite weight.
Exactly, and that's what Nietzsche's getting at. The eternal return challenges us to live each moment as if it were eternal, to make choices that align with our deepest values, to strive for a life that we would be willing to live over and over again.
It's a call to live authentically, to embrace the fullness of our being, to make each moment count.
Yes, and to do it all with a sense of joy and affirmation, even in the face of suffering and hardship.
This is pretty heavy stuff, but I can see how it ties into Nietzsche's overall message of embracing life in its totality and striving for self-overcoming.
Right. He's really pushing us to rethink our fundamental assumptions about who we are, what we're capable of, and what it means to live a meaningful life.
I'm ready to hear more. Where does Zarathustra go from here? What's the next chapter in this philosophical odyssey?
Well, after his intense encounter with the higher men and the ugliest man in the cave, Zarathustra feels the need to withdraw once again, to seek solitude and further reflection.
So he's had this intense burst of insight, and now needs time to kind of to process it all, to integrate it into his own being.
That's a great way to put it. He's been challenging others to awaken to their potential, but he also recognizes the importance of his own continued growth and self-discovery.
It's like he's saying that the journey of becoming the Superman is an ongoing process, a lifelong pursuit of self-overcoming.
Exactly. And even though he seeks solitude, he's not completely isolated from the world. He continues to encounter a fascinating array of characters, each of whom represents a different facet of human nature and the challenges of finding meaning in a world without God.
Okay, I'm ready to meet some of these new characters and hear what wisdom Zarathustra has to share with them, but I think we need to take a pause here and let all this information sink in before we move on to the final part of our deep dive.
Yes, a break is definitely in order. Nietzsche's ideas are like a rich and complex tapestry full of intricate patterns and hidden depths. Yeah. We need time to appreciate the beauty and complexity of what he's offering.
Okay, so we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into Thus Spake Zarathustra. Last time we left off with him heading back to his cave to reflect on everything he's experienced.
Right. Retreating to recharge, but even in solitude, Zarathustra can't seem to escape these encounters.
It's like the world just keeps finding him. So who does he meet this time?
Well, he has this rather interesting encounter with a character called the Leech.
A leech, okay.
Yeah. The Leech is described as this, spiritually conscientious person, but also as kind of a parasite, like latching on to Zarathustra, feeding off his ideas.
That's a pretty harsh image.
Yeah.
What do you think Nietzsche's trying to say about this kind of person?
I think he's using the Leech as a symbol of those who approach, knowledge, spirituality in this passive, dependent way. They attach themselves to others, absorb their ideas, but don't really, digest them or develop their own understanding.
So it's a critique of intellectual laziness. Like, don't just blindly follow someone else's path.
Exactly. Nietzsche's emphasizing the importance of independent thinking, of questioning everything, actively engaging with ideas instead of just passively consuming them.
He's all about becoming your own philosopher, your own creator of values.
Absolutely. And even in this interaction, he's not trying to force his ideas on the Leech. He's challenging him to find his own way, his own perspective.
It's like he's saying, don't just take my word for it. Go out and figure things out for yourself.
Exactly. Experience the world, wrestle with the tough questions.
And speaking of wrestling with tough questions, we've got to talk about the Ass Festival again. It seems pretty central to Zarathustra's message.
It is, and as wild as it seems, it's a powerful symbol of his philosophy.
How so?
Well, it's this rejection of traditional morality, this embrace of, the earthly, the sensual, and this celebration of life in all its fullness.
Saying yes to life even when it's chaotic and doesn't make sense.
Exactly. Finding joy, finding liberation in the midst of the absurd.
And Zarathustra himself is part of this festival.
He is. He's not this rigid, dogmatic figure.
Okay.
He's complex, he's human, he's capable of profound insight, but also playful abandon.
I like that. It reminds us that life isn't just about, striving for some goal or following strict rules. It's about experiencing joy, being present, finding the beauty in the unexpected.
Absolutely. And as Zarathustra's journey comes to an end, he returns to his cave. But he's not the same man who left all those years ago.
He's transformed by everything he's seen, everyone he's met.
Right, he's grown, changed.
And what happens when he finally emerges from the cave?
He delivers his final message, a call to action for those ready to become higher men.
And what's this message? What's he urging us to do?
He's telling us to question everything, to create our own values, to strive for greatness, and to really embrace that will to power as a force for growth and self-realization.
He's definitely giving us a lot to think about.
He is.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Thus Spake Zarathustra, what's your takeaway? What wisdom do you think Nietzsche is trying to share with us through this story?
I think he's challenging us to rethink who we are and what we're capable of, to embrace a life of constant becoming, of pushing beyond limitations.
Not giving us the answers, but the questions to ask.
Exactly. That's what makes Zarathustra so powerful. It's a journey, not a destination.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty energized after this deep dive. Nietzsche definitely has a way of shaking things up and making you see the world in a new way.
He does. That's the power of great philosophy.
So for everyone listening, what will you take away from this? How will you embrace this will to power, create your own meaning in a world without easy answers?
Remember, this journey of becoming is ongoing. It never really ends.
And as Nietzsche reminds us, the meaning of the earth isn't something we find, it's something we create. So go out there and create something extraordinary.